Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. I thought she was smarter, but good. My voice remained calm. Brenda raised her voice. Good. Did you hear what I said? Yes, dear. You have a date with a man this Friday, and you don't mind. Her surprise was impossible to miss. Of course I mind, but what choice do I have? As you've noticed, I don't control you. You're your own person. Your voice and expression tell me that you're determined to see this through. So what choice do I have? I'll be back. Don't let your fragile male ego get in the way. I love you and I'll make amends. You'll see. So you know it's wrong then? My voice remained steady, unwavering. What do you mean? I never said anything like that. I've earned this date. Will our parents, yours and mine, agree with you? Brenda lowered her eyes, silent. Clear admission. I let the moment linger in the air, embedding itself in her consciousness. She knew, and I knew she knew, they wouldn't understand, would they? You know you're doing something wrong. What? When did I say that? Just now? Why else would you say you'll make amends? If it were just lunch with friends, you wouldn't need to make amends. Or a haircut. You only said it because you know you're crossing a line. Uncertainty crept into her voice. But you said I could do it. No, I never said that and I never will. All I admitted was that I can't stop you, but don't mistake that for approval. If it were up to me, you'd be going out with me, same restaurant, same dance club. But it's not about the food or the dancing, is it? It's about who you want to be with, and that person isn't me. She lowered her head again. By the way, what's his name? It doesn't matter. Let's assume that. But know this. Your date with him on Friday will have consequences. What consequences? You're not just beautiful, Brenda, you're intelligent. I tell you that all the time. Maybe you think I say it out of obligation, but I don't. I say it because I mean it. And because you're intelligent, I'm giving you the responsibility of dealing with the consequences of your choices. You're bluffing. You love me. You always give me what I want. Well, I want this. And when I come back, we'll love each other and rebuild together. I stood, grabbed my keys and walked out before she could say another word. The temperature in the apartment had been cool all week. Thursday evening, I packed my things and moved into the guest room. What are you doing, Rick? She asked, pausing with a stack of clothes. I looked at her like she was a child. What does it look like? Are you moving out? Yes. My wife wants to date other men. Do you think I'm going to sleep in the same room with a cheating wife? Dream on, she laughed, a taunting, juvenile sound. You're such a silly boy, throwing a tantrum like your little ego is going to collapse. Without a word, I continued packing. Oh, I see. Silent treatment, is that your big move? Pathetic. Ha, said just one word before leaving the room. Consequences. She had been warned. Friday morning, I left early. First stop. A high-end salon for a professional haircut, a meticulous shave, even a manicure. Then a visit to the men's boutique next door for a crisp, casual yet elegant shirt, tailored trousers, and a blazer. I considered new shoes but decided against it. Dancing in fresh leather is a fool's game. After a stop at the car wash, my SUV gleamed. By the time I returned home, I waited downstairs. Half an hour later, Brenda descended the staircase in a dress I had never seen before, a few inches above the knee, a generous neckline. She stopped on the last step, expectant, waiting for a big compliment. When I remained silent, she blinked. Damn it! You look fabulous. Where are you going? Out. What did you think? I asked, mirroring her own condescending tone. What's a weak, clueless husband supposed to do? Sit at home, playing with his little kitty, waiting for Her Royal Highness to return? Slowly shaking my head, I walked past her and opened the garage.
And to think I thought you were smart, she scoffed. Well, I don't want to be late. Charmaine hates waiting, I heard her scream as I drove off.
Charmaine and I had an amazing evening at a refined wine bar, light dinners, a live pianist, and easy conversation. We already knew from work that we got along. She appreciated my humour, and nothing warms a man's heart quite like a woman who
laughs at his jokes. Dancing with her was like making love with shoes on, imperfect but exhilarating. We moved in sync, our touches lingering, but we both knew I was still married, and we respected that boundary.
Instead, we spent the evening savouring the moment, sipping wine and letting our gazes flirt in ways our hands never did. Brenda was beautiful and passionate, yes, but passion has a dark side, jealousy. I knew the thought of me dancing with another woman, especially Miss Charmaine, would drive her mad. When I dropped Charmaine off, she smirked and did me a favour. One drop of her perfume on my collar, a playful smudge of lipstick on my cheek. She kissed me on the cheek. "Go get her, Tiger." I chuckled and drove home. It was barely 10 when I walked in. "Where the hell have you been?" Brenda demanded. "Not your business," I replied casually. "You never told me where you were going with Mr. I'd ask if he used protection, but I don't care. You'll rot from the inside out because I will never touch your wretched, cheating body again. I had a fantastic time tonight, and I owe it all."
To you? Gratitude for what? I grinned. If your ridiculous idea to break our marriage hadn't crossed your mind, I would never have had the chance to get to know Charmaine better.
"What a woman! Hot! Very hot! So thank you, my dear," Brenda screamed, loud enough to wake the neighbours. I let her rage. "You know I hate this game," she shrieked. I smiled. "Then why did you start playing?" On Friday evening, I drove Julia to the rugby club for a bachelorette party. She looked elegant in a stylish pair of trousers and a blouse, an outfit choice that I suspected was meant to ease any lingering trust issues I had. She assured me that she wouldn't be late, but if I got busy, and/or Jane's husband could give her a ride home. I told her it was fine, though I preferred to pick her up myself, trying to show the trust one genuinely felt, while also making it clear that I still cared. A couple of weeks ago, I had done some work at the rugby club and wanted to check in with Jeff, the manager, to ensure everything was running smoothly. Julia's colleague had a niece named Kelsey, who was marrying her longtime boyfriend, Graham. They had been living together for about 6 months. Graham was a good guy, hard-working, intelligent, and exactly the type of man a woman should appreciate. I had even considered recruiting him for the service team since he was a skilled machine operator with a solid understanding of the equipment. Their wedding was set for the following Saturday, and tomorrow evening Graham was hosting his bachelor party at the club. I had been invited, along with most of the factory employees, even Philip Barrow, the boss's son. At around 9:30 p.m., earlier than expected, I got a call from Julia. She asked if I could pick her up, and then Jane as well, because things were getting out of hand with the younger crowd. I arrived quickly and went inside to find them. Jeff mentioned. They were in the storage room, a large banquet hall the club rented out for events. The bachelorette party had booked the space, and everything seemed to be running smoothly. I asked Jeff if there were any issues with the work I had done, but he just gave me a strange look and said everything seemed fine. I found his reaction odd, but I didn't press the matter. Just then, the women came out of the hall. Julia walked over and kissed me, while Jane smiled and thanked me for giving them a ride home. "What's going on in there?" I asked. "Lots of drinking, the usual party stuff," Jane replied. "They've got a few strippers, and that's not really my thing. Nothing has happened yet, but some of the jokes they were making wouldn't pass the husband or boyfriend test. I had originally planned to grab a beer and chat with Jeff, but the women were eager to leave. As we were heading out, Adam's girlfriend Dawn ran over and asked if we could give her a ride as well. She looked flustered and remained silent in the back seat for the entire drive. The next evening, Graham's bachelor party was in full swing at the banquet hall. In contrast to the bachelorette party, this was a laid-back affair, men drinking beer, playing snooker and chatting. Among them were Graham's future father-in-law, Kelsey's brother Harry, and most of the factory staff, including John, Adam, and Chris, 3 of my former team members who had recently transitioned into sales roles after their predecessors had quit unexpectedly. The atmosphere was friendly, and the night was shaping up to be an enjoyable one. Then things took an odd turn. Adam approached me with a puzzled expression. "Hey, I found something weird," he said, pulling me aside. There was a pair of women's underwear stuffed behind one of the seatbacks. I raised an eyebrow. "What were you doing, checking the seatbacks?" Adam shrugged. "Just messing around, but doesn't that seem strange?" I kept my composure, even though a few pints in my mind was racing. I decided to keep the information to myself for now and went back to my game, though I lost another pound to Chris in snooker. As the night wore on, I tried again to talk to Jeff about the work I had done, but he seemed to be avoiding me. I figured I'd catch up with him later. Then at midnight, everything changed. By then, most of us were in high spirits, but suddenly Graham dropped out of the game. His expression was unreadable, but something was clearly wrong. We initially assumed Jeff had too much to drink, so his future father-in-law took him home. We wrapped things up around 1-2 a.m., but Jeff was still avoiding me. Kelsey insisted on having a rehearsal for the wedding breakfast, an idea she picked up from television. No one was particularly interested, least of all Graham. The only one who seemed even mildly concerned was Kelsey's father, who hesitated, at the additional cost, but ultimately caved. "If my princess wants a rehearsal, she'll have one," he said. Graham opposed it, and that was the end of the discussion until Monday after the bachelor party, when he suddenly changed his mind. "Might be a good idea," he reasoned. "Some people aren't used to standing up and speaking." His change of heart was unexpected, but we agreed the rehearsal couldn't be fully executed since only the main participants attended: the parents of the bride and groom, the bridesmaids, quite a few of them, the best man, John, whose wife Lisa was the maid of honor, along with the vicar and the ushers. Adam and I arrived with our partners. Kelsey's father had booked the rugby club for Friday at 5 p.m, a convenient choice since the wedding reception was scheduled to take place in the club's reception hall. It saved Julia from cooking, gave me a chance to have a couple of beers, and allowed us to chat freely about the upcoming wedding without disturbing anyone. The club had seen its fair share of gatherings, so this was nothing out of the ordinary. Throughout the week, Graham seemed subdued, pre-wedding nerves, I assumed. On Friday, I tried to find Jeff again, but he wasn't around. It was his day off, before the big event. After the meal, Graham stood and cleared his throat. "I just wanted to get a feel for standing and speaking in front of people," he said. He exuded confidence as though he had rehearsed and no longer needed the practice. John stood next, offering a brief, unremarkable mumble about saving his speech for the next day. He didn't want to spoil his best jokes. Kelsey's father then welcomed Graham into the family with a chuckle and promised the real speech would come tomorrow. When Graham asked Kelsey if she wanted to say anything, she simply shook her head with a smile. Then it all began. "Well, I have a few words," Graham said. "I've been thinking a lot about what to say tonight, but I wanted to save my real speech for tomorrow. However, I do have a few questions." His voice carried a controlled weight, making the room fall silent. What would my dear future wife say if I had a great time with a stripper at my bachelor party? A ripple of murmurs and gasps filled the
air. Graham held up his hands and smiled. Don't worry, I didn't. My future father-in-law can confirm that as he beat me by 5 lbs in snooker. I fully intend to win that back soon. Laughter spread across the room. Some guests visibly relaxed. Graham continued. Marriage? He paused, surveying the room. Looking around, I see marriages built on love, trust, understanding, and communication.
I'm glad you're all here. Then his expression sharpened. I'd like to ask all the men who believe they are married to an amazing, loving woman they want to spend the rest of their life with to stand up. Predictably, all the men stood, myself included. Julia glanced at me and smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Gentlemen, please take your seats, Graham said. The men sat down. Ladies, please stand if you're married to a man you love and want to spend the rest of your days with. All the married women stood, though an undercurrent of unease rippled through the room. Some women with partners also stood, but the atmosphere had turned heavy. Then Graham's eyes locked onto Lisa, John's wife. If you love your husband, he said slowly, why did you do that to him? The large flat screen at the end of the room flickered to life. A photo appeared, Lisa on all fours, a man behind her. His face wasn't visible, but the implication was undeniable. The image was cropped, yet explicit. The room exploded. Gasps, shouts, and whispers clashed in the air. Lisa let out a cry, covered her face, and bolted from the room. John followed, his voice raised in fury, though his exact words were lost in the chaos. Graham remained composed, raising his hands once more. Right now, we can't continue like this. Please sit down and stay calm. The crowd hesitated, but eventually, the noise died down. Julia squeezed my hand tightly. Graham pressed on. If you were John, what would you do? Would you forgive her? Would that make him weak? If he divorced her, would that be too harsh for one night of betrayal? Silence hung heavy, then guilt crept in. One of the bridesmaids, Hilary, stood and declared, I would forgive her. It was a one-time mistake, a foolish moment. Forgiving her would be an act of love and kindness. Graham turned to her, his expression unreadable. You say that because you're hoping your husband would be just as forgiving of you. The screen changed. A new photo appeared. Hilary with Isha.
Another man engaged in an unmistakable act. The room fractured again. Hilary's husband stood, rage on his face, before storming out.
Hilary followed, calling after him in desperation. Graham exhaled. Now I have one more question. He turned to Kelsey. Do you have anything you'd like to tell me? Kelsey's face drained of colour. Her best friends had just been exposed, but was that all? Let's call a truce, Graham continued. If anyone has something to confess from the bachelorette party, speak now. Maybe the wedding can still happen. Maybe we just need a new maid of honor and a new best man. Silence. Then Dawn leaned toward Adam and whispered something. He nodded. They stood. Leaving so soon? Graham called out. Something to be ashamed of? Dawn turned and met his gaze. No, unlike some people. More tension, more silence as they walked out hand in hand. Graham adjusted his cuff and picked up the remote. Most of you think the rugby club's cameras don't work. They do. My boss Alan fixed them 4 weeks ago. I have everything from Thursday night. Last chance. A woman shot to her feet and exited swiftly, her husband on her heels. The room braced. Graham pointed the remote at the TV. "Oh, and by the way, the outdoor cameras work too." The screen played a clip. Kelsey, in her dress, sprinting toward a camper van. A black man opened the door. She climbed inside. Julia leaned toward me and whispered, "That's one of the strippers." The room collapsed into pandemonium. Graham fast-forwarded the footage, making the rocking van look even more incriminating. He then slowed it back to normal speed, just in time to show Kelsey stepping out, dishevelled and unsteady on her feet. The room was thick with silence, everyone watching in stunned disbelief. Kelsey sat frozen, tears streaming down her face. Graham looked at her, but his words weren't just for her. They were for everyone. "It's probably a good thing you told me it hurt too much to have sex with me," he said, his voice cold, "because I'd bet you didn't use protection either." As if on cue, the TV screen changed again. This time, it displayed screenshots from Kelsey's phone, messages exchanged between her, Lisa, and other women from the bachelorette party. A series of texts appeared in large, damning letters. "How was your first time with a black man? Looking forward to doing it again?" "No, once was enough, but it was so good. Good job. Everyone swore to keep it a secret, but this could cause trouble if it ever comes out. Don't worry, he'll never find out, and in a couple of years, you can do it again, maybe with someone else from the hen house." "Yeah, that could be fun. Definitely good. But right now, I'm having trouble walking. Damn girl, 2 at once. I've
Only seen that in adult movies. The weight of the words suffocated the room. Gasps, whispers, the scraping of chairs as some people recoiled in shock.
Kelsey buried her face in her hands, but there was no escaping this. Graham turned to the vicar, his voice steady. "Looks like the wedding's off." With that, he walked out. As he passed his almost in-laws, I heard him murmur, "I'm sorry." They just sat there, stunned and pale, unable to process the fallout of what had just happened. Graham had only shown a part of what he had gathered. There was no doubt in my mind that he had even more damning evidence, but he had chosen his moment to strike, just enough to shatter everything. I had a feeling divorce lawyers and marriage counselors in the area were about to be very busy. Kelsey sat at the head of the table, completely alone, shaking, broken. Julia held my hand tightly as we walked out. There was nothing left to say. Days later, our local newspaper reported an incident involving the police and fire department. What had started as an attempted camper theft had escalated into a robbery ending in flames. The victims, 2 adult entertainers. According to the report, the van's owner and his friend had interrupted the thieves mid-act, leading to a brutal altercation. During the struggle, something had gone terribly wrong, and the vehicle had been set ablaze. The newspaper speculated, though the police refused to confirm, that the injuries sustained by the victims seemed to have a revenge element to them. Both men had suffered severe trauma, specifically to the groin area. Couldn't have been Graham or Adam. Both of them had been working for me that entire day. I had seen them at the factory more than once. Still, I was genuinely surprised when I later found out that the back gates of the factory had been left unlocked. Coincidence? Maybe, or maybe not. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.